to Good Movies, the podcast where we discuss good movies. Welcome to our debut episode. On today's episode, we are going to review Martin Scorsese's most recent film, Killers of the Flower Moon, released worldwide on October 20th, 2023, 2 days ago at the time of this recording. My name is Forrest.
And my name is Kevin, and join us as we discuss the illustrious career of Martin Scorsese. And Forrest, the initial idea for this podcast was to go in order. What are we doing?
We are going to go in order, but we're going to start with a bang first. We figured that since the time Kevin and I finally got our shit together to record this, it was right. It timed well with the release of Killers of the Flower Moon. And yeah, so we're going to start with that and then go back through Martin Scorsese's theatrical backlog and discuss basically how it started versus how it's going.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for it. And yeah, this was a lot. This is going to be a wild way to start. Really amazing film. Not to tip my hat a little bit from the beginning. But yeah, one of the ways we love to start out our podcast is to share a little bit of our background of the film. Forrest, what was your background with this story, this movie, Killers of the Flower Moon?
I was aware that it was coming out. I was aware that it's based on the book. It's actually sitting on my dad's bookshelf. He read the book. He said it was amazing. I wish I would have read the book. There's actually a lot of films that are based on books, and I haven't read most of the book. You know what? I haven't read any of the books that these movies are based on.
I'm the same. I can't remember the last movie based on a book where I read the book. So you're in good company, Forrest.
Oh,
This
that's
is
a
a movie
good
podcast.
point. It is a movie podcast. But something that I do want to discuss is I think we'll give our overall thoughts of the movie,
Yeah.
spoiler free, but for the most part, this is going to be a very spoiler heavy episode. So if you haven't seen this movie yet, it's in theaters for a while, and then it will be streaming on Apple TV Plus. They have not announced a release date at the time of this recording for its streaming release, but watch for it there. So, Kevin, to answer your earlier question, I didn't realize we're in this little period where I feel like every movie that Martin Scorsese is putting out now, it could be his last one. And one
Yeah.
thing I was excited for was it's a long-awaited three-way collaboration between Scorsese and De Niro. De Niro is one of his earliest, one of the actor he collaborated with for a lot of his early films, and then in the later half of his career, he collaborated with Leonardo DiCaprio. And let's be honest, he's 81 years old. He still looked in pretty good shape, just for the little bit of him that you do see in this movie. That's not a spoiler. He's known for doing many cameos in his films, but it could be his last film. And I just want to say, if it is, there's a little poetic, it's a little poetic tying of the knot, if you will, to have DiCaprio, De Niro, and Scorsese in one film. And if this were his swan song, you know what? Way to go out with a hell of a bang.
Absolutely. And I hope he has more in him. I just watched an interview he did with Kimmel this morning, and he's still got a lot of
Interesting.
energy.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to listen to him talk in the kind of like that more relaxed format. And he seems like he still has a lot in the tank. So I hope he keeps going. But yeah, Forrest, this was awesome. And I was in the same boat as you. I knew this was coming out. It's a Scorsese movie, so I was excited for it. I didn't care what it was about. And when there's a new movie coming out, personally, I like to stay in the dark as much as I can. So I barely watched a trailer. I've been known to, when I sit down in a movie, like in the theater, and the trailers come on, I sometimes leave, or I look at my phone, or I put my face down because I don't want to see anything that's happening. I love going into a movie fresh. But yeah, I didn't know anything about it. I just knew it was about indigenous people, and the little bit of stuff that I did see in the trailers looked like a lot of bad shit was going down. So it was a really wild experience to get into this movie.
Yeah, all I did was read a summary and a little bit about who was going to be in it. And there's some, well, we'll get into this more later on, but you know who was nice to see again?
Who?
Brendan Fraser.
Oh yeah, that was a great get. I think I'd heard that at one point a long time ago that he was going to be in this, but he just came out of nowhere and dropped the mic. That was awesome.
Did you see The Whale? I haven't seen that yet,
I
but
haven't either. No.
that was
Um,
supposedly his comeback film. And you know what? Welcome back, Brendan. We missed you.
we really did. I hope he keeps going here for a long time as well.
Hell of a comeback. Yeah. So your overall, Kevin? What would you say your overall thoughts are of this movie?
It was an epic. Felt like it was a true
Mm-hmm.
epic. Like I said, I didn't really know what I was getting into. And I was riveted the whole time. This movie is 3.5 hours long. Forrest, did you have to take a pee break or did you make it the whole time?
You know, it's funny. I was going to ask you the same thing. I did not make it the whole way without having.
Oh,
Did you?
I made it, but just barely. And I was thinking
Wow.
as I was watching the movie, let's drop this in now because people might be listening before they see the movie. I think if you have to go to the bathroom, a good time to go is when there's a big like fire happening on screen. So I'm not gonna give away what's happening, but there's like a lot of flames. There's a lot of people like gazing at the flames. And that went on for a little while, and when at the end of that scene, I was like, shoot, that would have been the time to go.
That was not where I went, but I will say at the moment where I did go, and I'll get into that a little bit more during the spoiler section. I don't feel like I missed that much.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It,
Someone
it
went to
went.
jail.
Yeah,
That's there's a lot of that.
yeah. That was one thing I kind of as an overall thought. Like, it was a really intricate story, but I kind of could tell what was going on from the beginning. Like they sprinkled in, he sprinkled in a lot of kind of like breadcrumbs to like try and figure out what's going on. But I kind of felt like I know where it was going the whole time. And like I said, I didn't know anything about it going in apart from a trailer or two. Of course, what do you think about this kind of the overall thought story as a whole?
You know, I was in denial the whole time because
Okay.
I think I kind of knew, but you didn't want to know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because did like my gosh, De Niro had such charisma for
Yeah.
the
Oh my
role of
gosh.
such a well. I don't want to spoil too much, but De Niro had charisma. I thought he did really well. Uh, DiCaprio did well, and I read what Dan. Sorry, I just watched a film review this morning with what's his name? He's a YouTuber. Sorry, I'm just
Dan
finding your
Merle.
videos. Dan Miro, yes.
I just recommended you to him. Isn't he great?
Yeah. But I agreed with him in the fact that DiCaprio did a good job, but
Hmm.
it wasn't a revolutionary role for him. Like I when we
Yeah.
look back on all of his roles, I don't think this is gonna be probably not even top 10 for all the stuff that he's done. Memorable
Yeah.
performances. But that's not to take away from his performance. It's
Hmm.
still stellar. It's just not a whole lot of new things from him.
I'd agree. Yeah, he felt pretty familiar in this role. To me as well. I just pulled up IMDb here. I thought I had it open. But yeah, do you want to give a quick overview of like the key people in this movie and just like a quick bit on who they are and what they do, at least between Leo, De Niro, and newcomer Lily Gladstone?
Yeah, and that's actually someone who I wanted to highlight is wow. Like I'm excited to see what we get from Lily Gladstone. She's not as seasoned as DiCaprio and De Niro, but boy, she gave a stellar performance.
Absolutely. And in the interview I watched with Marty this morning, he couldn't say enough about her, and he really clued in on one thing that I really noticed was she could do so much acting with so like not little effort, but just with her face. Like she was just telling her story without speaking, with speaking just a little bit. Her facial expressions, her eyes, just like amazing performance by Lily Gladstone. And yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
don't. She hasn't been in much. I think she's been in a show I've heard about
She was
called
on Reservation Dogs.
yeah, that's what they mentioned, which I've heard is an amazing show, but I haven't seen myself. So
Same. She's also on Billions, which I haven't seen either.
yeah, same here.
But a couple of other key performances to look for. Jesse Plemons, he's been in a lot of stuff like Friday Night Lights. Most notably, he had a role in the final season of Breaking Bad, and I guess kind of a spoiler for Breaking Bad, but y'all should have seen it right by now. That's a dig at you, Kevin, too. Um, yeah, for context, I've been telling Kevin to watch Breaking Bad for over a decade now.
I'll get
Someday.
around to it.
Spoiler alert, he plays a real piece of shit character in Breaking Bad. So it was nice to see him as in a much more positive light because he's a really good actor, but the fact that he plays these villainous roles so good, it's it's the kind of situation where had you only seen his performance in Breaking Bad, you'd hate him in real life. Just
He's another guy who is an amazing, just like face actor. Like you could just look at him changing his expressions, and you get a lot out of it. I don't know him from much. I've seen him in Game Night, and he was in a really good episode of Black Mirror. But he always kind of plays
okay.
creepy guy. Like he kind of has good creepy guy face, and he's really good at that. But no, I agree. It was cool to see him in more of a hero role in this film.
Yeah. So there's Tantu Cardinal as Lily Gladstone's character's mother. And I don't know what else she's in, but another established Native American is she Native American? I should have looked this up. Okay, so she's of the Cree Indians and of Canada.
Okay, cool. That was another
And
cool thing they were mentioning in the interviews and the couple articles I read is that they worked with as many local indigenous folks as possible, and then with Lily and Tantu and probably a few others that we'll get into her sec. Like they worked with as many indigenous folks as they could for actors and background folks and extras and all that, which was really great.
yeah, and then a couple of other. So I mentioned Brendan Fraser. And John Lithgow was the other well-known actor. Not his most I mean he did a good job, but it just wasn't his most memorable role.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like he's kind of in that Steve Martin like class though. Like he's looked the same. He's looked like he's 60 for like 30 years, but he still looks
I could
great.
agree with that.
He was a fun one to see as well. I wasn't expecting to see him. He has such a great voice.
um yeah, well then I guess before we get into spoilers, this was a very oh boy. It's the kind of situation where it's a very good and powerful film. I'm not going to put it in the category of where I only need to see it once, but definitely along the lines of I don't want to talk to another human for the rest of the day after I watch this.
I'd agree. Yeah, it was a really tough story. And to be honest, I didn't know if this was a true story or not. Like I thought it was, but I never heard that. And there wasn't like a based on a true story like frame at the beginning, was there? Or did I miss that?
There were frames. I don't recall what they said at the moment, but
Yeah.
and apologies, folks. Part of the it's fun to go see movies in the cinema, so please still go do that. But I couldn't take very good notes for this, but I have a pretty good idea overall of, uh, you know, I did my homework, but I didn't take the best notes.
Yeah, same here. Like what we our usual podcast, we'll do a little bit more of a detailed breakdown of the film, but it's a little easier when we can go back and watch the movie at home and take notes. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. I paid as close attention as I could. I tried to take some notes when I got out of the theater, read some articles, but I think we can do a good job kind of kicking on some of the big themes as we go through here without a scene by scene breakdown.
Sounds good. And the last thing I want to say before we get into spoilers, very excellent movie. I'm not going to say it's a must-see theaters movie, although people, we need to go back to the movie theaters because it'd be very sad if those ever went out of style. Um, contradicting my own point here, but it's kind of bold, but I think I'm going to call Best Picture of 2023. That's my prediction for the
Ooh, wow.
2024 Oscars. It's bold,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I know we still got a couple more months left of the year, but that's I think for sure it will get the nomination. I'm calling it for Best Picture, but you know,
Hot take.
we'll find out. Hot take, yeah.
I'd have to pull up my letterbox here. I know there's a lot of pretty artsy stuff for some more like awards seasony stuff coming out here, but yeah, this one has so much juice behind it. I think you got something there for us.
All right, I love it. I love it. Well, yeah, we might have to break down. We might have to break those down once when the time comes. All right, so let's get into it. So, your fair warning, we're roughly 20 minutes into the episode. Spoilers from here on out. Okay, continuing from now on, spoilers ahead. You have been officially warned. The film starts off with a Native American ceremony. I guess it's some Osage elders basically mourning how all of the other ancestors basically succumbed to the influence of the white American society. Paraphrase from Wikipedia's page, of course.
Good call. And I was curious what time frame this was in. I couldn't tell if it was the 20s or the 40s, but I confirmed this is in the 20s. So this is post World War One.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which gosh, what they don't teach you in history. I was not aware that this was a thing at all, but apparently this was a really big deal. You've heard in like the 20s, the early 20th century, how oil is black gold. Once the Osage, so this is based on the Osage tribe off the Oklahoma Indian Reservation, and here's some trivia. Apparently, this was the most expensive film ever made in Oklahoma.
I believe it.
All right, there's my bit of trivia for the day. And so, of course, what did white people do? They came in and took advantage of the situation. So once the tribe became wealthy because the white Americans basically paid them real well to use the oil on their land.
Yeah, exactly. And this was interesting for us. I don't want to steal your
No, go ahead.
thunder.
Go ahead.
This was something I learned in my research post watching the film. Is that one? This was based on a true story, but one cool thing that the Osage did versus a lot of other Native American tribes and groups is they actually purchased their land. So they purchased this land that they're living on. That's why they had true rights to this. I am sure if the tribe did not own the land, if it was a reservation or of some kind and oil was found on it, white Americans would have kicked them off and say, that's our oil, we're going to move you somewhere else. But since they owned the land, that's why they could lease this out and actually make money off of it. But what we'll get into here is the way that's set up, the way they're making money off of it, the way that the tribe is able to make money off of it is has a lot of opportunity for problems to get started. And where there's easy wealth, there's going to be bad actors coming in trying to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. You say bad actors?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to argue because I think King Hale was a very, very good actor.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. the
Um,
the old adage doesn't hold up for these guys.
yeah, it's we'll talk more about that. After the film explains how the Osage became wealthy, there's a little montage of Ernest Burkhart, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, just finished turning from World War I and coming back to I mentioned earlier King Hale, played by Robert De Niro, who lives on the Osage Reservation along with Ernest's brother Byron, played by
Scott Shepard.
Scott Shepard.
He's one of
Nice.
those guys. He looks familiar, but I have no
One of
idea.
those guys. What else
No
is he
idea what he's
in?
been in.
He's in El Camino, the Breaking Bad movie. I haven't seen that yet, and I haven't watched Better Call
Mm,
Saul. It's on
more
my
Breaking
to-do
Bad.
list. It's on my to-do list. But yeah, I guess he's in Bridge of Spies is another big one.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I don't know him. Maybe he just has one of those faces then.
Yeah, I can't think of anything big I've seen him in.
Ah, Last of Us. That's where I saw him most recently. He
I
played
I
a
didn't
real
wa
creep in Last of Us, just in one episode, though.
I have not watched that yet. I'm a big gamer, and I don't even have a PlayStation, but it's kind of like I want to read the book before I watch the movie, although I didn't do that in this case. I want to play the game before I watch the series.
Ah, yeah,
We'll see if I ever get around to it.
yeah.
I'm a little spurned on that after Game of Thrones. So Ernest Burkhart returns to Bill King Hale. King is a nickname. And I mentioned earlier, De Niro's charisma. So it's really like I like that it's not just a big villainous reveal. It's gradually throughout the movie you find out, oh, he's really not a good guy. He comes across as very likable. He speaks the language of the people. He buys the gifts, and he's seen as a real man of the people, so to speak.
Later on, I don't know if this was mentioned earlier in the movie and I missed it, or if he brings it up later. But he talks about how he brought a lot of the infrastructure to the town of Fairfax and some of these towns that are getting all this wealth from the oil. So where he helped them build streets, build towns, build hospitals, all that. So it seems like he
Yes,
really
that's
is
right.
kind of, yeah, he's really, and like you said, a huge charisma. You can tell like you'd want to do anything for this guy. And when Leo comes home from the war and they have their first sit down conversation in many years, it's funny that the King nickname is pretty funny because he sits down with his uncle to chat, and he's like, "Oh, Mister Hale," and he's like, "Oh no, don't call me Mister Hale, call me Uncle or King, like you used to." It's like, all right, that's a little it's a lot of hubris there for a nice guy, but you can tell later that he really does believe he's a king and can do whatever he wants.
Right. And like I mentioned, it's not a big gradual reveal, but basically the way he continues his wealth is by having his family members, so Ernest and his brother Byron, they marry the Native American women and steal the wealth because they pass away due to mysterious circumstances, or basically they're set up to be murdered. King Hale is the one who's setting them up to murder, but I don't believe he does any direct murders. They're all jobs that he pays other people to do.
He keeps his hands clean, that's for sure.
Yeah, like his brother Byron is already married to oh my gosh, I'm getting the names. And we're back. So I apologize. We had to do some fact checking. Okay, so Byron was not married to any of them. He was in an on again, off again relationship with Anna Brown, who was Molly's sister. But let's go
Yes.
back to Molly. Molly, played by the fantastic Lily Gladstone. So Ernest Burkhart takes a job as a cab driver, and Molly is one of his customers, and they meet and they fall in love. Now, Kevin, did you happen to think that their love was genuine?
It felt like it. It felt like and there's the funny bit in the beginning in this long intro conversation with Leo and De Niro, their characters. You can kind of tell he's kind of a not a bimbo, but he's kind of a dope. Like he was in the war, but he was a cook. He got some type of injury that kept him from doing heavy duty work now back in the States, but it wasn't a war injury. It was like appendicitis or something. But he's like, oh, I love money and I love women. So I think there was something to him, something to him courting her and how he did it. It felt pretty genuine, and for Molly, it was real. You could tell that, but yeah, that's kind of the overarching question throughout the movie as more and more bad stuff starts happening. It's like how could someone really do this who loves someone?
Yes, and so eventually the two do marry. Ernest is working as a cab driver, and he's actually, the reason why I posed the question, did he really love her, is because De Niro or King kind of told Ernest to basically go marry Molly because her family had a lot of money. Just for context, so Molly is uh, of four daughters, and it's just her mother and her four sister and her and her three sisters, and then their father is deceased. Basically, she's supposed to inherit a lot of money.
I was just gonna do a little background on the money and how this like inheritance system works.
Yeah,
Would
go
you like me to
ahead.
jump into that now?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, so this was another thing I researched after the fact, which is really wild. So the way this worked was the Osage tribe was making tons of money off of leasing their land for oil. So all of this money was then getting distributed to everyone in the tribe based on how much bloodline you had. So a full blood Osage person would get something in the realm of $80,000 a year, and its prime 80,000 current dollars, based in 2023 dollars. So they'd get about that much per year. But then, like we said, there's five people in this family, and the once other people die, the those rights then go to another to the living kin in the family. So that's how eventually Molly could end up be making $500,000 a year if all of her family starts passing away. So that's where all this wealth is coming from, and how people are able to sneak in and find ways to steal it. So when you marry into these families, you had rights to this oil money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically that's the end game, is that Molly's relatives start to die off and she becomes the sole beneficiary to the wealth, and then when she passes on, the wealth goes to Ernest, and then I believe the plan, because King was a manipulative asshole, that the money would go to King, because you know, I guess we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but I think that he was planning on killing off Ernest eventually.
Oh wow, yeah, I didn't think that far, but I'm sure, yeah, having it in the family, I wouldn't put it past him.
We'll get to that part later. But so you find that Ernest, or excuse me, King has already ordered deaths of other Osage families. See, so I think it's Minnie is the one that, yeah, Minnie is the one that dies first, the first sister that you see to pass away.
Yes. She's married to a gentleman. His character's name is Bill Smith. Is that right?
Yes, played by country singer Jason Isbell.
Oh, cool.
Um, have you ever heard of the band Drive By Truckers?
No, I haven't.
So he was a member of their group, and I think he's solo now.
All right, I'll have to add him to my Spotify.
I'm not the biggest country music fan, but I have heard the name before. So he plays Bill Smith, who is married to Minnie, and so Minnie dies of diabetes, as they call the wasting illness, I think is what they refer to it as. But it's diabetes, and it's revealed that the insulin that they're feeding is actually poisoned.
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's a lot of talk about the medical issues these women are having, and how the men, then Leo's character, and likely Bill's character, how they're all making it look like their wives are just wasting away and dying of natural causes. But once Minnie passes away, Bill just moves on over to another woman in this family and gets married months after. So it's they're not covering up their tracks that well.
No, they're not. Bill, so the character Bill Smith was not in the same group as King and Byron and Ernest. He's got his own private agenda. They don't go into that very much, but so I guess it's said that he marries her. He sought comfort. So Minnie was the first sister who died, and then he marries Rita, who's Molly's other sister.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we go to probably the next best thing to talk about is no, we got to bring up the character Anna. So Anna is another sister of Molly's, and she's the free-spirited sister, basically the one that doesn't keep her mouth shut. And she is the one who is in a back and forth relationship with Byron Burkhart. We determined he was trying to court her, but it never panned out into anything.
Yeah, so she's the fun one. She's the one going out to all the bars, having a good time. There's talk of how she has to carry a gun in her purse to protect herself because she's always getting into trouble. She's showing up to family functions drunk.
Yeah, they talk about how basically they talk about how her mouth is going to get her killed, and spoiler alert, it does. Eventually, she is found murdered by gunshot. So, and yeah, when you think about it, it's I think like it should have been obvious that the white man was killing off all of these Native American Osage, but then I think the key was that King was so charismatic that they never suspected him.
Yeah, he was able to cover it up, and they hint at and share throughout the film that like this is like a gold rush town. All kinds of people are showing up, whether they're going to work the oil or whether they're just going to open up a business because there's so much money here. There's so much money to be made. Like, oh, it could be these ruffians, these cowboys, all these other people. They're just causing all kinds of trouble, like in Old West town. There's
Right.
it's easy for not easy, but like that's how Hale can kind of keep his big overarching plan covered up by like, oh, this is just a dangerous place to live. There's a lot of accidents happening.
Right. Okay. Now, okay, I'm getting my timelines confused. So after Anna is gone and Minnie is gone, so we're down to two sisters and the mother. Lizzie Q, who is actually being poisoned by the same wasting illness, the diabetes. I think at one point they even said the women don't tend to live past 50.
Yeah. That one I'm not as sure on, honestly. Was there any hinting in that with Lizzie, with the mom character, that someone was poisoning her, or was she just elderly? Personally, I didn't catch anything that maybe Ernest or someone else was poisoning her because she lived with Molly and Molly was taking care of her.
It was hinted at.
Okay.
Lizzie
Gotcha.
Q. So Lizzie Q, the character played by Tantu Cardinal. So she was being poisoned, but before that, she brings the tribe together and basically encourages them to fight back. They know someone is being killed, and in that scene, basically they have the mom, they have Molly, they have Ernest, they have King, and then they have all of the other Osage people, basically a council saying we need to find these murders and bring them to justice. And King himself offers $1,000 reward to whoever is doing this.
He's playing his part well. He's staying on their side. He's welcomed into this council. The leadership in this town just believes he's an ally.
Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, Lizzie Q does die.
That leaves Molly as the sole inheritor of.
No, her sister's still alive at this point. Her sister, Rita, is still alive.
My mistake.
Um, but okay, so this is where the time gets a little confused. So there is a scene that I have to bring up where the character Blackie, and who plays Blackie?
Tommy Schultz,
Dang, nice find.
another creepy face guy.
Yes, but he doesn't even have his own Wikipedia article.
Oh yeah,
So
he might be
uh
a local. That was another
mhm.
thing that they hired local Oklahoma folks if they could, and this is
uh
literally the only thing on his IMDb.
okay. Well, I would have known because he was a good actor.
He was great, yeah.
But he's hired to do another job. I forget the name of the person that they're murdering this time. It's not a part of the family, of the immediate family. It's another wealthy Native American. So he's hired to do another job, and just as a little cherry on top, Ernest says, "Well, you can steal my car too, and I'll take the insurance money, and you can have the car do whatever you want." And it becomes completely botched, and they don't show it. This all happens off screen, but Blackie is sent to jail because the police found the stolen car, and Ernest could cash it on the insurance. So if anyone wants to know why our insurance system is broken today in the U.S., it's because of people like Ernest Burkhart.
That's all of it. It's all Ernest's fault.
Oh, that happens a couple times in this movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't worry.
Lots of insurance fraud.
Yeah, among other things. And one really uncomfortable scene is so we all know Leonardo DiCaprio. He's how old is he now? De Niro's in his 80s, like 80 or 81. Okay, so DiCaprio is 48. Because King Hale finds out about how basically Ernest went behind his back and did the complete wrong thing. He gets paddled. Like they do this religious reading, and then he gets paddled like a school board
They
paddle
go
from
into
the
a Masonic
1920s.
temple
Yeah, and he gets
to do it.
paddled by his uncle.
Oh yeah, that was a wild scene.
That was uncomfortable to watch, but like God, you're I don't know how
He's
old
a
the
dope.
character.
I think he is like a dope. Like he's just screwing stuff up. He's not that smart, and he gets treated the way he's acting. It's treated like a kid.
Yeah, I know, but God, it's like if I were that age, I'm not letting my old ass uncle paddle me like
Yeah, he
that.
didn't stand up for himself at all.
Yeah. But now that I mention it, I think that's a theme throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah, his character's just kind of a coward.
Yes. So then so as we move on, Molly begins to get sick. It's the same wasting illness, which is diabetes. And he orders the Ernest and these two sketchy doctors provide insulin, which is really poison to Molly, and she just gets sicker and sicker. But it's he plays it off to where King Hale, he's probably the wealthiest man in this community, and he's paying special money for these two doctors to administer this insulin shot. And what did you think about Molly refusing the shots by these doctors?
I mean, she was smart. She was on the right path of like I don't trust these people and they're causing more problems than they're worth. She could tell they were sketchy doctors. They were the ones that really botched Anna's autopsy. This is a real quick callback. There's a really horrific part earlier in the film when they find her sister Anna's dead body. They're just doing the autopsy out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these people watching. Molly's there watching. If I was her, I would not trust them either. Sadly, she does trust her husband Ernest to give her the shots.
Yes, and something else that happens right around this time. Sorry, I'm going a little bit out of order, but they hire Molly hires a private detective to basically investigate what's going on. So her mother and her two sisters die, among many other Osage wealthy Native Americans. They they're all dying in a very small time period. So she hires an investigator, and he's eventually beaten by
But
he's
hooded
eventually beat.
figures. We don't
What's
know
that?
who they are. We don't know who they are at first.
Well, okay, it's later revealed that it is Ernest and Byron.
Yeah.
It
I think
the
that's key at this point though, because like at this point we're not sure how bad Ernest is. We keep seeing him do sketchy stuff. He's starting to poison his wife, which is pretty horrific, but we don't know how deep he is into all of Hale's plans as he is at this point. And later on, it's revealed that he's one of the hitmen now too.
mm-hmm. Oh god, it gets worse and worse because now Molly is just in the first stages of being poisoned. She's not quite bedridden yet, and it's just announced that she's pregnant. And I think this comes up later, but they're kind of concerned about the kids being beneficiaries of this money and not necessarily
Yeah, I think
the
so.
husbands.
When it's first announced that she's pregnant again, Hale De Niro just gives him the stink eye. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, we're not that.
Mm-hmm.
That's more splits for the future. But they already have kids, so that was one part I was a little confused on because they already had at least one, if not two, kids at that point.
Right.
But yeah, that's they're watering down their inheritance with the more kids he has.
Yeah, so maybe maybe he just wasn't careful.
Hmm.
And it's like really a third time?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, but later it's revealed that Molly's first husband, Henry, his name is Henry Roan. I think he was also played by a local William Ballou. That becomes another problem is well, if he's her first husband, maybe he'll have a claim if Molly dies.
Yeah.
Apparently he's a melancholic, so what they try to do is they try to play it like it was suicide. Apparently this character had already tried to off himself a couple of times. So that's how they tried to play. They hired another hitman, and surprise, surprise, it goes completely wrong. They specifically instruct to shoot in the through the front of the
Yeah.
head. And that's not what happens. And there's a really, it's a really good scene where they realize that their hired assassin, I forget his name, but their hired assassin basically botches it. And so they're discussing it in the car. How hard is it? The front is the front and the back is the back. I said the front of the head. So I thought that was a really good, it's a really well done scene where it's black comedy is what it is.
Yeah,
It's
there's
joking
some
about a
good dark
dark
humor
matter.
there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that was, I like that.
You don't quite get a montage in this film, but there's all these like mini stories of these horrible things these people are doing, and it was like a short film almost of the hitman starting to make friends with
Mm-hmm.
Henry Roan before he killed him. So like they're hanging out a few times, and then he offs him, and then it goes wrong. And it's an interesting. There's lots of different like mini stories told throughout this whole film.
Yeah, that is true. Boy, isn't it nuts that this was based on a true story?
Yeah, it is. It's really horrific. And everything I've read since then, like some interviews with the author and things like that, it sounds like they hit it on the head. Like this seems to be as accurate as it can be for all of the information. A lot of the information they had to get was word of mouth from younger people who may have lived through it or
Mm-hmm.
ancestors. But yeah, it seems like the film really followed the story as close as it could.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, it's only going to keep getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
Because now, next on their list is they've got to get rid of Rita. And
Yeah.
I guess before that happens, there's a really uncomfortable conversation with Ernest and Bill Smith, and basically each of them knows what the other one is up to, but they're just trying to call them out without being hypocritical because they're both after the same thing.
Hmm. I loved that scene. That was a weird, interesting scene
It was
between these
uncomfortable.
actors. Yeah.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable, but it was good. But what happens? So Blackie is out of jail now. They pay him to blow up the house next. They blow up the house, which kills both Bill Smith and Rita. So
Yeah.
that is Molly's last surviving sister, leaving Molly the sole benefactor for her family's wealth.
Yeah.
And during this part, she's getting sicker and sicker from poison that's
Yeah.
being administered.
One bit I want to call out here that
Mm-hmm.
was you really get the full picture of how terrible King Hale is at this point, leading up to the explosion assassination, because he's just very matter of factly saying, well, we need to kill both of them. We need to kill Bill and Rita. And, well, could we do it separately? No, it would be more efficient if we do it all together. How about we blow them up? And it's just very matter of fact, very scheming and gross, and just, and he doesn't, you can tell he has no remorse. He's just trying to figure out how to get himself on top by any
Very
means necessary.
sociopathic.
Oh yeah.
Gosh, so all of this has happened, and Molly is going through waves. Like there's some days where she's bedridden and some days where she's okay. But one of the last things that she decides she could do while she's still somewhat healthy and dying is decides to travel to Washington, D.C. and actually goes to speak to Calvin Coolidge to get her to help. And it's just a brief scene, but it was effective. Basically, she says, "You guys aren't helping. There are people being murdered. We know it's the white man. You need to send somebody down to help." And it works because after this, that's where Jesse Plemons as Tom White, he comes in, and so I don't know if you caught this, but it was really interesting. He actually comes and knocks on Ernest's door and asks him about. He has to see Molly because she was the one who asked for help, and you can tell he's suspicious because Ernest is pushing him off, and oh, she's very sick. She can't see anybody right now. But I thought what was a really neat and interesting part, I don't know if you caught this, but do you know why he's explaining what the Bureau of Investigation is?
It was new. It was brand new, right?
It was basically created for this case.
Oh wow. Okay. In some of the reading I did, I heard this was like the first big case or whatever. But yeah, I didn't know it was created for this. That's amazing.
Let me fact check that really quick. All right, we're back. So it was one of the first cases of the Bureau investigation, which precedes the FBI Federal Bureau of Investigation. So I thought that was super interesting that this had led to that. I mean, there were other events like the assassination of William McKinley. That was another big one. But it leads up to how we got the FBI, what we know today as the FBI.
This is really important from a support standpoint, because they hint at throughout the movie that any local law enforcement is either not doing anything or doesn't have the power to help. They say multiple times, King Hale says, "This is Indian land. No one cares about dead Indians," horrible things like that. And it is Indian land, and there's different, the law enforcement's different. The state of Oklahoma wasn't helping. But now, with the Bureau of Investigation coming in, they do have jurisdiction over all domestic land, so they can actually do something about this. And once Jesse Plemons' character starts asking around, you can tell that people start getting nervous.
Right. You know why he was, that's funny. We go back to the manipulative nature.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was saying that, oh, it's Indian land. They don't care. I think he was saying that to make him more of a man of the people. And I care, but they don't.
You're definitely right, because he would say that in those like council meetings, like when he's breaking bread, when he's sitting down with the tribe members. He's like, "Oh, it's all these ruffians coming in that are causing problems. I'm here to help."
Yeah, so he is investigating, and Agent Tom White who's played is Jesse Plemons' character. So he is, he's investigating around, and eventually, um, he's starting to figure out that Hale is the one involved. And during this scene, there's a montage of them all of their hitmans basically being set up to be killed off, and some of them are picked up by the FBI and give the BOI, Bureau of Investigation. And we're back after some technical difficulties. Well, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder. There it is, Simpsons reference. Okay, so at this point, Ernest is becoming more and more paranoid. There's the scene where they're at that festival, and he goes up to his uncle, King Hale. He's freaking out, and Kale's trying to keep him calm and telling him not to worry about it. And then it's not a montage, but it's a series of scenes where they're basically trying to tie off loose ends, and some of their hitmen are killed, some of them are carted off to jail.
I say there was a really smart setup in there where he tells one guy, "Oh, he hires one of his like regular dirty work guys to go rob a store, but then he also tells the store owner, hey, there's guys that are going to come rob your store tonight, I heard about it." So then his hitman he wants off gets killed by the store owner. Like, for a shitty guy, he's a smart guy.
Yes, and that was a good part. The part that I really like is towards the end of this, and this is why I said earlier that I think Hale was planning on having Ernest killed off, is he's having Ernest sign a paper. Like, he swears it's just a formality, which I think the idea was basically that it was going to sign over his rights to the Osage money, all that he would get as a benefactor once Molly died, that he would sign that off. And Ernest is really reluctant to sign it, but he eventually does. And it's at this scene where they see Tom White. He's watching all of this going down. He's in a store, and he's watching this through the reflection of a mirror, which was really well done. He gathers the other agents around, and basically they come up with their game plan and find out everything they know. So at this point, it's revealed that a man named Kelsey Morrison was actually responsible for the death of Anna. After this, Kevin, remind me, where in this part does his second insurance claim where Kale takes out a fire insurance policy, and then a month later they show his farm burning down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is this the part where you said the best time to excuse yourself and relieve yourself is, or was it another scene?
That was this part, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so all of the FBI guys, they're meeting in a field. So Tom White, he's built a crew to help him understand what's going on in this town, and they're all going undercover. So they're meeting together out in a field in the middle of the night to exchange information. And you see a big, not a forest fire, but a big fire happening on land off in the distance. And one of the guys, one of the FBI guys who's posing as an insurance salesman is like, hey, that's Bill Hale's farm. I just sold him a fire insurance policy.
You got your work cut out for you tomorrow.
Yep. But yeah, this is a good spot for a pee break. It slows down a little bit. There is a little bit of storytelling with Ernest and Molly. He's continuing to give her drugs He partakes himself a little bit this time to see what's the feeling is like. But yeah, I would recommend this as a pee break spot if you need one.
Yeah. So a couple of things on that. The spot where I went to leave was after the car insurance job went bad.
Yeah.
Um, I don't remember what I missed, but I know it wasn't enough to derail me from the plot. So
No, I don't think so. Like there's a lot of detail. There's so much happening in this movie, but you can continuously follow it even if you miss a little bit here and there. It seems like it's like a slow reveal of it of all of everyone's issues getting more and more revealed versus like one big reveal, or if you miss it, you won't get what's going on.
yeah.
A slow burn, if you will.
Haha, touche. So another part. So after, right around that burning scene, I think they're going back and forth between the scene where the farm is burning, and then Anna is in really bad shape, and it's a callback. One of her relatives is passing away earlier in the film. We didn't touch upon this, and she said when you see the owls, it's a sign that you're heading to death, and the owls showed back up.
Yeah.
I can't believe we missed that earlier on, but
yeah, that was my first note I took after the after the film was the symbolism of the owl. But yeah, her mom Lizzie, when she's still okay but not on her deathbed yet, she sees an owl in a scene. It just kind of walks into their house.
that the end is near, I think is
yeah,
what
the end is near. Yep.
And when that happened, and Molly is in really bad shape in this scene, and she looks to Ernest and says, "You're next."
yeah.
But it's not clear if she's even conscious or not.
No, she's not coherent. She starts saying things like, "Is this real?" And
coherent. That's a better word.
Yeah, is this real? I think that's what she says multiple times. It's something to that effect. She doesn't know what she's dreaming and what's happening for real.
Yeah, and so this is where the film, the intensity of the film really starts revving up. So when he was putting the poison in his whiskey, I thought he was attempting to commit suicide because he knew that they were basically done for.
Yeah. No, I think he was just trying it out because the dosage he's been giving her has been taking her out slowly. But maybe he's just upset with himself that he's doing this because that's the real push and pull of his characters. He's doing all these horrible things, but it does seem like he's doing them somewhat reluctantly. But that just kind of comes back to how he's a coward. He's just doing what his big uncle's telling him to do.
Exactly. And so a couple of other things that we missed, which I think is going to come back, is at some point, their youngest daughter, the one who they announced that they were pregnant with, he has 3 kids at this point. The youngest one is taken away from them because she has whooping cough. And she was sent to live with another family. The other 2 kids are still there. They don't have a ton of screen time. But I did want to point out that
there were some year jumps in this movie that were a little hard to follow. Like she's pregnant, but then the kid is older. At one point, they say, "Oh, that happened 2 years ago," and that was just a couple scenes in the past. So I'm not sure how many years this movie covers, but it is multiple. It's like 2 to 4 to 5 years, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. The kids are still really young because in the next scene, he's at the bar with his kid, but he is drunk. And I don't know if this is symbolic of anything, but do you notice that he keeps getting more and more, like, it seems like he's becoming more and more drunk, like, just as it goes on and it gets more stressful. And then he becomes a lunatic towards the end, kind of.
Yeah, he does. He's just more continuously. Yeah, early on in the movie, you can tell like he likes a good time. Like he'll be out till dawn playing poker, losing all his money, getting drunk. But yeah, he becomes much more of an alcoholic as the film goes on, and it's less of a weekend thing and more of an all the time thing.
Yeah,
as he's losing his soul, maybe.
Ooh. And but at this point, he's arrested by the BOI, by Tom White, and he's taking into custody, where Blackie reappears and has basically given them a bunch of information. Ernest doesn't know this at this point. They're not letting him sit down. And I think what they're trying to do is torture him, because they mentioned that they keep him for a couple of days till he finally breaks down.
Just some light torture.
It was a different time.
Yeah.
Well, what's worse, that or being poisoned?
Yeah, I think making him stay up for a couple days and not let him sit down isn't too bad in the long run.
But eventually, they bring in. So Blackie confesses his piece. One of the hitmen, I don't remember what his name was at the. Yeah, the role isn't super important, but it's one of the other hitman is brought in and also confesses his piece, and then finally they offer Ernest protection to bring down his uncle, which Ernest initially agrees. I think it's during this point, because so the scene where, I wanted to mention this earlier. I thought that Molly had died after the scene of the owl, but she didn't.
No, she was still hanging in there.
She was nearly there, but the agents do find her, and they actually get her the proper medical care. So she doesn't show. She eventually becomes healthy again.
Yes,
because they
she pulls a great recovery.
They stop poisoning her.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ernest agrees that he's going to testify against Hale so he can get legal protection. And this is where we see Brendan Fraser as W.S. Hamilton, who's Hale's attorney.
Coming in hot.
Yeah, coming in real hot. Like you said, the mic drop. We mentioned that Ernest isn't too bright, but he insists on speaking with Ernest, and the whole point of that is to get Ernest to what's the legal jargon? To swear that his confession is the result of torture from the Bureau.
Yeah, so they want to turn him on his head. They want him. His plan is to go against his uncle at this point, but then they want him to flip flop and speak that the government was torturing him, that all of his confessions were fake.
It was a small screen time, but a large performance. Let's put it like that.
Definitely. And you know what I want to see? I want to see the spinoff of a court movie with Lithgow's character versus Fraser's character, because they had some good sparring. I love a legal drama, and they had some good sparring.
Yes, and Lithgow is the prosecutor.
Yes, Lithgow's the prosecutor.
Brendan Fraser is the attorney.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so after that, Ernest walks out. So Ernest gets to see Molly again, and he's still trying to convince her that they've got it all wrong. King Hale is innocent, so is he. They're going to go out. He's going to be protected. They're going to put on a show and arrest him, which they do. They're not putting on a show, but they do arrest him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in jail along with his uncle. And I think it's at this point where Tom White reveals that Ernest's youngest daughter has died of whooping cough.
Yeah.
And I think Ernest is allowed to be let out for the funeral for that.
He is, yeah. This is one of the scenes where you can kind of tell that you think Ernest really does love his family, even though he's doing horrible things to them. He does love his family. He is not acting when he reacts to the news of his daughter passing away. He's extremely upset, and he's not thinking to himself, that's one less person that's going to get an oil ration. He's thinking, I've lost my daughter. This is horrible. I want to see my family and my wife again.
Right. And it's actually this scene right here that convinces him to go with the Bureau and testify against Hale.
Yes.
And this courtroom scene is really good. So they interview I mentioned earlier Kelsey Morrison, who is one despicable piece of shit.
Yeah.
They mentioned that he he was an accomplice of Anna's murder. So he pulled the trigger, but it was Byron Burkhart that actually positioned her to be killed. So it was a double job. And they show basically scenes where he was married to a native woman and was trying to get her claim. And he was seeing this woman whose husband died and had her 2 children. And he mentioned that if he were to marry her and she were to die, and then if the children were to die, would he get their claim? Like, holy. But he
Completely
can,
nonchalant as
yeah,
well. It's
that
like
was
he's
the spooky
ordering.
part.
He's like he's ordering food at a restaurant.
Right, like just a normal everyday conversation. So he confesses to that, and then Ernest confesses to everything. He confesses to everything except the fact that he was poisoning his wife.
Yeah.
But one interesting detail I wanted to point out about this. This scene I thought was oddly reminiscent to the Goodfellas courtroom scene. The shot of De Niro just looking at his protege in disgust, similar to how Jimmy from Goodfellas is looking at Henry Hill.
That's a good callback.
Yeah, did you catch that?
I didn't know. Goodfellas is one I've only seen once, so I don't know the details that well.
Whoa,
but
that'll be
I know
interesting.
Scorsese is always good at calling back on his own stuff, so I trust you there.
That's the Scorsese film I've seen the most, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait till we get to that one. Yeah, so after that, they take King Hale away, and then Ernest gets to see Molly one more time. And Molly asks him point blank, what was in that drug you were giving me? And that's the one thing he never came clean on. He just said insulin. And she just walks away like she knows he's full. She knows he's not telling the truth.
Yeah. It's sad that it took her that long to see him lie, but thank goodness she understood it at that point.
Yes. And we have a really creative ending. How did you feel about the radio show ending?
Absolutely loved it. I thought it was amazing.
I preferred that to just a text card.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was so interesting. And it was pretty much a smash cut, right? It went straight from that scene with him and Molly walking out, and then it just goes to this radio show, right?
Yeah, and you know who played the radio show actor?
Who?
Jack White.
Oh, cool.
Which I didn't catch that till I'm just reading the summary here, but wow.
Yeah. So yeah, instead of your traditional like text over screen with photos of the people of like where are they now, what happened after the court case, you get this really cool filming of a radio drama. And I think this is based in the 40s now. This is further on. Of the story being told by the Lucky Strike radio show, or Lucky Strike Cigarettes was the sponsor of this show, and it's the full deal with full orchestra and people doing sound effects and different actors telling the stories of what happens to everybody. And it was a really interesting way to wrap up the movie. I have an interesting little tidbit I'll jump in at the end that I learned from one of the articles I read, but let's talk through the scene first.
Yeah, so they reveal that King Hale did have to he did go to prison, but was let out early for good behavior. Was ordered to never step foot in the state of Oklahoma again, but was reported to have visited multiple times. So he died in Arizona, I think at the age of 87. Let me confirm that.
I think
he died
that's
at a
right.
nursing home in Arizona at the age of 87. Ernest and Byron were both committed as well.
Ernest received a pardon, though, didn't he?
He did, and by the end of his life, him and Byron were both living in a trailer in Osage again, which, God, that is ballsy.
It's amazing that they went back. Yeah.
And then Molly did divorce Ernest, but sadly passed away at the age of 50 due to diabetes, and was buried with her family. And did you catch that part at the end? The significance.
Which part? Sorry.
where they're talking about the ending of the death of Molly.
Yeah, they mentioned earlier that most Osage don't live past 50.
Well, not that, but you know who they read her actual obituary, and it was
Hmm.
read by Martin Scorsese himself. So
Yeah, he
there's
came. He was the he was the ending of his own movie, which was awesome.
yep, there's the cameo, which I thought was perfect. And
Hmm.
then it finishes with the an Osage tribal dance celebration,
Hmm.
and fades out.
Yeah,
And no, did you stay for the post credit scene?
there's a post credit scene.
No, it's
Dang
not a
it.
Mar.
Well, I'm not. I'm
It's not a
glad there
Marvel
wasn't
movie.
because I didn't stay. I remember I made it the whole time without having to pee, so I had to get out of there.
I was trying to make a joke how
No, it's good.
about how he hates Marvel movies and they always have
That's a good
post
one.
credit
That's a good
scenes.
one.
So no way in hell is he throwing post credit scene. All right. What was your little tidbit that you wanted to share?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So this was interesting. I read in one of the articles leading up to the film here was that the those radio shows were a real thing,
Hmm.
but they were, you could tell like that there was a lot of production value. Like they're telling this really horrible story, but in a really entertaining way. And this was a callback to the way these were done. They were kind of used as propaganda for the FBI, and for like
Interesting.
government agencies. They're like, oh, the government helped fix this horrible problem. But that was one of the callbacks of the radio show and why they were doing it with such almost a fun vibe. Honestly, like you kind of have to see it, but like with all the different characters speaking in short, punchy dialogue and all the music and sound effects and stuff. But it was an interesting way to call it out, and I believe kind of the artsy side of it was how this type of history can be whitewashed or co-opted to tell a positive story out of a horrible tragedy.
Oh,
I'll link to
that's
the article in the show notes. It was, they said it much better than I did.
fair enough. Yeah. So your overall thoughts?
Oh man, it was a journey for sure. I kind of like you said in the beginning, like it's a really tough, horrible story, but it was a very watchable movie. It didn't feel like 3.5 hours. The only reason it felt long is because I had to go to the bathroom and I didn't want to go. Otherwise, I was happy to sit and watch the whole way. The sets and the filming of it was beautiful. The acting was great. The town, like all the background stuff was amazing. The towns, you could tell this is a real movie. I'm sure there's CG somewhere, but it all looks like it's all real stuff, which just goes a long way these days where everything's on a green screen. This is so much cooler, in my opinion.
Yeah, for someone who loves Marvel movies like yourself, you're very appreciative of Scorsese's settings right
Oh,
there.
yeah, definitely.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How about you?
I think this is a very. I think it's I think to say that it's best picture material. I don't think I'm too far off. That's my prediction that it would be best picture. I could be way wrong. I think I'm right with the best picture nominee though.
Definitely. Oh, well,
And oh, go ahead.
yeah, I would say just one other call it. I'm so glad this movie was made because I criminally know very little about Native American history and never had heard of this tragedy. And I'm thankful that movies like this get made because this one seems like it's pretty accurate. But even when movies are made like this and they're not super accurate, it helps me to want to go find new bits of history that I don't know about and blind spots that I have. So I really appreciate that something like this is made in such a digestible package that you can then go and learn more about it on your own.
Yeah, I would have to agree 100%. I had no idea that this was a thing. I'm not surprised, quite frankly, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it was a story told. And wow, yeah, like I said, I walked out and you just realized how horrible humanity can be. And when I first walked out, I was thinking that this was the Schindler's List of our generation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not quite that powerful, but definitely a very it's a film everyone should see, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. It's one like they could show in school, like that type of thing for sure.
Yeah. What do you score it overall out of 10?
Yeah, out of 10. Now just for everyone to know, I'm kind of a score from my gut type person. Some rewatchability, some like powerfulness, sometimes like cultural impact, but usually just kind of from my gut. I gotta give this a 9 out of 10. It's almost a perfect movie to me. It did everything right. I don't know what to ask for more. But yeah, 9 out of 10 for me.
I tend to agree. I'm more of a subjective reviewer myself. I rank based on rewatchability, how much this will be referenced and talked about in the future, and of course, my personal tastes come in there as well. So, and we'll dive into that as more as this show goes. But I'm right there with you. I give it a 9 out of 10. I won't call it perfect because I don't think it's very rewatchable. I think it's something everybody should see, but it's not something that you're going to sit down and watch with your friends and quote over and over like Goodfellas or Taxi Driver. So it's very powerful and it's something that everybody should see, but probably not the fun party movie that we all look to.
No, but yeah, definitely good to sit down and discuss like we're doing here. And I had a lot of fun, like even just looking up some recent articles that were written around it. I'd love to read the book and just dive more into this. So I think it's a great jumping off point for education.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Kevin, thank you for joining me today. That's all I feel I have to say.
Same here. This was great. And thanks for listening in to our first episode of our Martin Scorsese or In Order podcast. So we're kicking off with a bang. We're starting here with his latest film, Killers of the Flower Moon. But our second episode is going to start from the beginning, back in 1966, of Who's That Knocking at My Door.
Yeah, so join us for that one. Yeah, we'll probably revisit this one later as we just kind of have time to digest. I think I saw it 2 days ago, and Kevin, you only saw it last night, so
yes,
haven't had a ton of time to digest and see how it holds up in comparison. But it's powerful. I think, like I mentioned at the beginning, Martin, he is 81, so this very well could be his last film, and if it is, it's a swan song and a masterpiece for sure.
Absolutely, couldn't say it better myself.
All right, well, you folks enjoy. You know what? Just enjoy your life, and I hope you're doing whatever makes you happy. My name is Forrest,
and my name is Kevin,
and this was Good Movies.